Hello everybody, good evening and welcome back to OPTV Live's Mech Mania Monday. I am Steve and tonight we have a really awesome throwback episode to the original Sega Genesis game Herzog Zwei with our 1v1 tournament. This is game B of our brackets. On the left hand side we have the Big Boss flying around in his Black Ops Striker. The Black Ops Striker, very unique in that it is black, but then it'll take on the highlights of whatever your team color is. Kind of reminds you a little bit of Tron in a way. His opponent for this match is 5ingu1arity, or otherwise known formally as Goo. Also in that Black Ops Striker, thereby showing you of how the different highlights of the color change from mech to mech, depending upon what your team color is. Goo wasting absolutely no time at all, bringing in some zippers, those motorcycle type units, dropping them off, setting them down on a moving patrol, making them much harder to destroy, dropping 2 off out at this outpost, creating a lot of headaches for the Big Boss, having to try to deal with. He has to deploy out some tanks right there to handle it. Got other units going on the base, not doing a whole lot of damage or anything, but just enough of a nuisance that it causes Big Boss to have to go back, but it gives 5ingu1arity a completely open window to try to move in on this bottom lane and try to see if he can actually take it out. Realizing that his health was very low, he goes back to the base, using that energy to recharge his health and his actual energy of his air mech. Deploying out additional units, including 3 tanks and a healing unit to keep those tanks alive, as he continues to slowly push in and try to take down this bottom lane. Big Boss also decided to move in on the bottom lane. Nobody went upper lane for this match. So we are going to have a head-on-head meeting once these two guys each secure their side of the base. Neutral units are in their way, causing them a little bit of headache, but they are able to neutralize it and get control of their respective outposts. Big Boss has, looks like a potential of a few more tanks out on the battlefield, and it's slightly ahead of 5ingu1arity at this point, as Big Boss has completely eliminated all of his neutrals and has possession of his outpost, and 5ingu1arity only just now actually got control of his outpost, thereby putting him a little bit behind as far as the race goes between the two of these guys. Big Boss scouting around, trying to see what's going on, realizes, hey, my opponent really doesn't have that much out yet. Let me move my tanks out right now before maybe my opponent gets too well defended up. 5ingu1arity, seeing that it's coming out, tries to get out his tanks, get them along a line so that way it causes for extra damage, and lines everything up. Big Boss using that power sword ability, dropping down. Everyone, there's just a mess of units and tanks and everything exploding everywhere. Who is going to come out on the top of this? Power swords coming out everywhere, tanks blowing up everywhere, flames and smoke. Mass hysteria going on right now, but in the end, 5ingu1arity actually does survive the push that comes in, and unfortunately right now Big Boss has nothing out on the battlefield to actually handle this counter push that's coming in from 5ingu1arity. 5ingu1arity not having much, only 3 tanks, but he decided, why not, let me push out with those anyway. Big Boss deploying out some tanks to try to help in defense of his outpost so that way he can hold it, but 5ingu1arity very smart, is trying to spread around his tanks, making it harder for his own units to deal with it. But unfortunately, it looks like that this is going to essentially be a wash, where in the end, neither one of these guys are really going to gain any significant footing on the other. But now 5ingu1arity with the second push coming in, but this time much more intelligently, has actually deployed some anti-mech units out on the battlefield, and that was so close from 5ingu1arity's standpoint, but instead it is actually the Big Boss that goes down, and 5ingu1arity goes down. Big Boss actually uses buyback to get back into the battle. He realizes this is a critical stage, and he needs to be in the battle right now. Can he actually stop this push? Can he hold on to his outpost? 5ingu1arity, on the other hand, waits for his standard respawn time to come in, picks up his units, drops them off, brings them down, is not going to wait at all. Big Boss, massive amounts of tank damage. If 5ingu1arity goes in there and swipes with that energy sword, these tanks right here that are on fire will die virtually instantly, eliminating half of Big Boss's defense right off the bat. 5ingu1arity needs to get a second to just get in there, take a look, and notice this before it's too late and before these units get healed up. Big Boss, using some of those repair units, now is actually healing up these tanks. It's going to make it much, much harder for 5ingu1arity to be able to break through again on this time. Taking a look right now, Big Boss clearing out one of those landmines. They're both looking, trying to see, okay, where can I get the upper hand? How can I push through? Where can I go? One thing that definitely these guys are completely forgetting about is that there is a whole second upper lane that they can go through that is not being used right now at all. Big Boss instead, rather than worrying about the upper lane, tried to go ahead and take on this close outpost right off the bat. If he would have been successful, that would have been right on Singularity's front doorstep and would have been very, very dangerous. Singularity now saying, okay, yeah, bottom lane is very hard to go through. I need to try to work on the top lane. But Big Boss not giving up. He wants this outpost. He wants it bad. Bringing in more troops. But now Singularity, he's got a tank down. He's got a Seeker unit down. Seekers are that anti-mech unit, making it really hard now for Big Boss to come in. And Big Boss may have to reevaluate his plan and find a different plan of attack to actually go through. Oh, and I'll tell you right now, it's really nice here. Singularity trying to move in onto that upper outpost, but Big Boss does fly around scouting, and air mech scouting is so important. Your intelligence, your view of the battlefield, what this mini-map on the bottom tells you and what you go around and scan can make or break your game. I've seen people that should have been able to completely win, but because they just don't pay enough attention to the battlefield, it winds up that they lose out on all their opportunities to actually gain that advantage and do it, and their opponent completely then just walks all over them. So yes, if you are new to air mech, haven't played before, watching that mini map in the bottom left corner is just as important as actually looking at the screen itself as you're actually playing. Right now, both these guys trying to mass up a little bit of an army, trying to find some sort of hole, some sort of opportunity to get through. Singularity uses that bunkering ability of those creep units to actually make his outpost a little bit harder. But here we go, guys. This is the push right here. Singularity was not ready for it at all. Big Boss with the perfect distraction up onto that outpost. Singularity does not see the push coming through, and this is exactly what I was saying here, folks, about paying attention to that bottom section of the mini-map is just as important as paying attention to your main screen, because Singularity did not see this until it was too late, and Big Boss now has a very, very firm stance onto that outpost, and leaves a few of his tanks still actually proceeding up to the main base, thereby causing Singularity to not have opportunities to try to respond even faster to this push on the bottom base, giving Big Boss all the time that he needs to really, really secure onto this bottom outpost. Now at level 7, taking a look at these players, Big Boss has bought 2 levels of the power sword and that's it, whereas Singularity has 2 levels of power sword and 1 level of afterburner. Big Boss is strictly worrying more about his actual units on the battlefield than anything else and wants to get as many out as he can. Big Boss now, oh look at this, rather than going to his main base, Big Boss decides to actually detour these units up towards his upper outposts. Singularity now is basically cornered in on both ends, only having this middle power station, and that's it. He's really cutting in, even admitting himself that he did not see it. That is what we're saying right there, folks, of why it's so important that you have to pay attention to that mini-map on the bottom. If you don't, you can be caught off guard, unprepared, and it can just be very, very painful experience very quickly. Singularity knows that the pain's coming in, he knows that it's coming, he's trying to do whatever he can to get as many units out on the battlefield in defense as possible before that push comes in. Big Boss brings his units a little bit, sees those units into place, halts it up, just trying to find some area to go through. Singularity actually goes, brings a tank to that main base. And for those of you that do not know, the reason why Big Boss, rather than standing in front of that tank to block the shots, actually move behind the tank is that when you do shoot a tank in the rear, it actually takes double the normal amount of damage, so you can kill it faster. Really coming down to a question as to whether or not you want to risk taking damage on something by not blocking it, or if you're just going to go ahead and you're going to let that damage come in, but that way you can hopefully kill it faster. Each one has its strengths and weaknesses, and it's really up to you as the player to decide that. Now, this is something that you normally don't see too often here, is this imminent danger, 10 seconds left. This happens when your opponent has control of every single outpost on the map. Once this imminent danger time hits in, as you guys are going to see, the income level excellent income is no longer affected anymore. Basically now this winds up that once this happens now, your base starts beginning to take damage. Essentially it is a mechanism so that way your opponent cannot turtle up so significantly that you cannot break through his primary base defense. And essentially stalemate out the game for the entire time. Big Boss right now using all these outposts, letting the domination mode of the game to just apply the damage to the base himself. Now what Singularity must do is he must neutralize any outpost on the map. He does not even need to capture it, but so long as he can neutralize any of the outposts that are on this map, he would no longer be in a dominated position, which would actually give him the opportunity to potentially at least have an opportunity to find a way to come back in this game. Unfortunately, Singularity is so focused on his base defense, he's not trying to pursue to see if he can actually cancel this out. Big Boss realizing that a major advantage that he does have right now is just going to try to push him with all these units. There's really not much that Singularity can do on it, and there we go, guys. That is your Game B winner right there, the Big Boss. He will move on to the semifinals. Singularity put up one great fight right there, but in the end, Big Boss did manage to come out on top. I am Steve. You are watching OPTV Live. Stay tuned for Game C.